Good morning and welcome to the Vault Exhale. Happy Hump Day, everybody. This commentary is pertaining to John Bassett. He is now standing trial in Knoxville, Tennessee criminal court for the murder of Desheena Kyle. The said source is WBIR Channel 10 News. Thank you for joining me.
Cold-blooded murder or one man's foolish effort to hide a suicide. That is what Knox County jurors must decide in the 2021 killing of Desheena Kyle of Knoxville. Her ex-boyfriend, John Bassett, faces the potential of life without parole for her murder. As his trial got underway this afternoon, Bassett's attorney told jurors Kyle took her own life in June of 2021 with a gun, and that he only hid her body in a toolbox for months under an abandoned house. Well, technology is expected to play a key role in the trial this week. Prosecutors say Bassett's cell phone and data from his rental vehicle revealed his every move after he carried out the crime. New to cold-blooded murder.
All right, everybody.
One man's
Thank you so much for that said commentary. One moment, please. Thank you for joining me. Hello, Buffalo Mountain. As you heard here, WBIR, the defense is alleging through their client, Mr. Bassett, that the only thing he did was hide the body because Desheena allegedly, from his version, she killed herself, which makes no logical sense. And naturally, the queen is going to dissect that ignorant commentary after reading the said information that the state has gathered against Mr. Bassett in this brutal killing of a young lady. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Big Angie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are welcome during the live stream. This is live number 1. The second live stream will be pertaining to Jacqueline and Trezelle West and Lori Vallow Daybell. Each case is wrapping up in Idaho and California. Thank you for your time. All right, everybody. WBIR.com is the source. Self-inflicted or cold-blooded. Trial starts for ex-boyfriend accused of killing woman hiding her in toolbox. Thank you so much. 1 second. John Bassett and Desheena Kyle had a stormy relationship that ended with her death in June 2021. Cold-blooded murder or impetuous suicide? Those are the choices a Knox County jury has to ponder this week in the trial of 30-year-old John Bassett in the June 2021 killing of his ex-girlfriend, Desheena Kyle, 26. Knox County Assistant District Attorney General Rachel Hill told the panel Tuesday afternoon in her opening statement that Bassett was obsessed with the fact that she might be pregnant. He wanted her dead, so he shot her once in the head at close range, Hill said. Then Bassett researched information on his phone about early pregnancies and what happens when someone suffers a gunshot wound to the head. In truth, Kyle was not pregnant, Hill said. He also spent hours in Kyle's Knoxville apartment cleaning up blood from various spots in the home and hiding 2 stained chairs in a location her family would never know. Finally, Hill told jurors he wrapped her body in tape and garbage bags and hid her in a toolbox in a crawl space under an abandoned house, his late great-grandmother's old home, in fact. He killed her, and he did everything in his power to prevent anyone from knowing what he did to her, Hill declared. Defense attorneys Cullen Wosick and Josh Hedrick, however, countered that Kyle was mentally unstable and prone to thoughts of suicide. 1 second. Jumped off there. She took her own life, and it was Bassett's foolish move to try to hide her body and keep that information from her family, Wosick said. He made a lot of bad decisions. He's guilty as charged of tampering with evidence in her death, Hedrick declared, but he didn't commit murder and he didn't abuse her corpse, they said. Kyle disappeared in June 2021. Her family immediately suspected Bassett, with whom she had a stormy on and off relationship. Police ultimately found her decomposing body in September 2021 in a large toolbox in the vacant home. Hill and co-counsel Joni Stewart say technology will play a key role in Bassett's trial. Authorities found incriminating evidence on his cell phone, including texts, Hill said, and he rented a Ford truck that recorded his movements, including to the abandoned house, in an onboard computer, she said. Technology, Hill said, was Mr. Bassett's downfall. Testimony continues Wednesday. Judge Scott Green is presiding over the trial, his third in recent weeks. If jurors find Bassett guilty of murder, the state will seek a separate penalty phase to try to have him put away for life with no chance for parole. Bassett is being held in custody. WBIR Channel 10 News is the source. Hello, everybody in the chat. So we have Mr. Bassett claiming through his defense attorneys that Miss Kyle was unstable, suicidal. She killed herself. He found her and then decided to wrap her in duct tape and plastic bags and escort her out of her own apartment via a toolbox in a rented vehicle, a truck. They've tracked movements through the truck. He took her to his great-grandmother's house, which is abandoned. Please check out my video from yesterday where I take you to the crime scene or where her body was found. A very desolate area in North Knoxville on Sam Tillery Road. The house sits on a dead end. It's very creepy back there. And I also take you to her old apartment complex thereafter. And I spoke with, luckily, neighbors who were living above her at the time of the murder. And please check out those two videos. They are in the YouTube queue. Thank you for your time. So once again, he claimed she was unstable, suicidal, found her and disposed of her body. We know that this is illogical behavior of somebody who would care for you and discover your body. As you hear the state say, where he messed up is phone data, texting. What were in the text? Text to her? What did he say to her? Was he moaning, going off, cussing and fussing, thought she was pregnant? The state tells you she wasn't pregnant. Allegedly, they weren't dating. So then you have to ask that question, well, why would he think she was pregnant? Did she tell him she was pregnant? When was the last time they had been together? So you're going to ask all those questions because he searched all this after killing her. So one would say, oh, well, he thought she was pregnant. That's still not a reason to kill someone because you believe that they are pregnant. So when was the last time they had a conversation? What was the conversation? Naturally, they will reveal those texts during trial, what he texted to her and her responses to him. As I brought you information yesterday pertaining to people who heard the windows break, there were allegations that he took her out of the apartment. But when you listen to the article, he cleaned up the crime scene. So he thought. So then one would have to say he took her out of there deceased, because I'm not here to focus on any rumors. And I said I will put a discrepancy in my videos to clear up any discrepancies that was told to me via these people and their allegations and what they heard happen on that fateful night. The allegations is that she was screaming for help, obviously, inside the apartment, outside of the apartment. A deceased neighbor saw her leave. This is information I got from a neighbor yesterday. But the evidence says he cleaned up blood from chairs, blood out the apartment. He stayed in there for hours trying to clean her apartment. So why would you be trying to clean up a suicide? The logical thing to do is call 911. He broke into this lady's apartment, point blank. An eyewitness said they heard glass crashing, got up, didn't see anything. He repeats that a neighbor who lived next to her heard her scream, heard a commotion inside the apartment, looked out, I guess, and saw him leaving with her. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I'm not here to claim anything, but the evidence says he cleaned up her apartment. So we will wait to see what the evidence shows, if she was bled out in the apartment, too much blood to have been alive, So what's the truth? She died in the apartment, or he shot her and carried her out while dead, and or he never carried her out after death. He cleaned up. I don't know. I just don't want to make any claims that are not true. But he obviously took her out because they said he took her out, taped her up, plastic bags. So I don't think a person will be wrapped in duct tape and plastic and they will be screaming for help. That would be kind of hard to do. And one would assume you're dead if you're wrapped in duct tape and plastic. So as I said, I will put a discrepancy. I will clear up any discrepancies in my videos claiming that she was alive out of the apartment. That's what was told to me via a neighbor. And he was repeating what the neighbor who was living next to her at the time said. He heard her scream. But if evidence shows that she was dead, then he could not have heard her scream. Maybe he heard her screaming in the apartment, but not outside of the apartment. Thank you for your time. Mr. Bassett, let me say this to you directly. You probably will never know of this video. You may have some croonies and relatives out here that watch YouTube, and they'll probably get wind of this video because this is a very small town and everybody knows everybody. And you know the queen doesn't care. I'm highly favored. I'm leaning on faith. You killed her for whatever reason. Whether you thought she was pregnant, you wanted her back, didn't want her back, whatever the issues were. Do not know the last time you had any type of dealings with her personally, physically, but you went into your phone. That is what the state is alleging. You went in your phone after murdering her and you Googled what happens to a person pregnant being shot. Why would you be Googling that? Seems to me if she killed herself, you'd be trying to call 911. Who has time to be Googling what happens to a person if they were shot and pregnant? And then the state tells you she wasn't pregnant. So naturally, they did an autopsy and they performed it well and saw she was not with child. So what made him think she was pregnant? You're alleging that she was violent. She damaged her. But yet you're breaking in her house, as I stated in my last live stream. So why are you even over there breaking in her house? You went there deliberately to kill her. So now we have to ask ourselves, did he go to her house in that truck originally? What automobile was used when he went to her apartment? Number one. Killed her inside of the apartment, tried to clean up, Googling things about death and pregnancy after the fact. They have tracked information from the truck that he rented, because naturally, if you rented the truck, the agency has tracking devices on their vehicles. As the state says, this is where you messed up. Googling information and then using a rented truck to dispose of the body. And I said this in my commentary. How did he carry her to the dump site? Because although she was a small and petite person, a toolbox in my mind is the little toolbox that you see people carry who work in construction, maintenance. Naturally, they have the tool box that's on wheels. It has lots of shelves. But in my mind, I'm still trying to say, well, what? Does it open up to where a person would hide inside? This is crazy to me. So I'm looking forward to seeing, macabre as it sounds, what this toolbox looked like, because I can't imagine it right now. And I meant to Google toolboxes, different sizes, and I'll probably do that after this live stream and possibly post it to my community board to show a box that a human being could fit in. This is so sickening. So did he text her the night of the murder? Did she not respond? If she responded, what did she say? Or did he just go over there with the intent to kill her? No conversation, no text, broke into her house, murdered her, cleaned up the crime scene, took her out of there. So what did he take her out in? Because if he took her out in the toolbox, then that shows premeditation. That means he went there deliberately with the toolbox. So that means you would have had to have the toolbox already in the truck, pulled up, walked around the back of the building, Please check out my video where I show you the back of the building and her bedroom window. And you went in, broke in, killed her, cleaned up, and then toted her out. But how would you be able to put her in the toolbox? You wouldn't be able to do it inside of the parking lot. So did you go there with the truck? Number one. Number two, did you take the toolbox in the truck? Kill her, come back out to the car, bring the toolbox back inside of the house, wrapped her up in plastic bags, tape, and then put her in the toolbox. See, this is where it gets dicey. Where did the tape and the plastic bags come from? Where did the plastic bags and the tape come from? You want me to believe she had duct tape? And it's not to say that women don't have household tools and screwdrivers and things, because Queen keeps all those type of things. But I can honestly say I don't have any duct tape. I don't have any reason to have any duct tape. So where did the duct tape come from? The plastic bags, were there bags that belonged to Desheena Kyle, or he brought the bags? He brought the duct tape. Was this premeditated murder on behalf of John Bassett? Why did you discard her at your great-grandmother's house? Because you knew it was abandoned. Nobody lives there. Nobody goes there. It's overran with brush and trees. Please check out my video where I take you to that dump site, the discardment of Desheena Kyle was at this said house in a crawl space. So that's why I want to see the toolbox. Because when you look at the picture, the video that I took yesterday at the crime scene, number 2, you're going to try to figure out what does the toolbox look like to put her in the crawl space. And you can see a board over the entryway at the bottom of the house where obviously he put her. This is macabre at best. Once again, prayers to the Kyle family. And there will be justice in this case. I'm leaning on faith that 12 members of the jury, seated very early, will find him guilty and will give him life in prison with no possibility of parole. He has no business walking the street because he is defaming her name and her character after death. To say that she was suicidal, unstable, maybe she was. Maybe she was unstable. Maybe she was moody. Maybe she did have mental issues, mental problems. That has nothing to do with you breaking in her house and killing her and then trying to blame her for killing herself. And you, got spooked and found her and then dumped her body at your great-grandmother's house, abandoned house, that lonely, dilapidated house on that lonely, macabre-looking street where there's nothing but broke-down trailers and nothing but brush. And it's disgusting back there. I'm going to say it. It's a horrible looking place back there. I don't like it. I was nervous going back there yesterday, even though I went in daylight savings time, because you don't know people. You don't know who's lurking around. You don't know who's back there watching to see who shows up. You don't know anything. And the fact that it's so desolate back there and it dead ends and there are abandoned trailers back there, on that street, it was scary being back there. And although I made it clear to the people next door that I was just making a YouTube video to show the people what the house looked like, I don't know those people. I don't know them. Who's to say they weren't related to him? Although they asked me who I was I friends of the family or for the victim? I said, well, I know the victim's family, but I'm just here to make the video. And it was a while before I even got out of the vehicle. I kept getting in and out of the vehicle because I was leery being back there. I didn't even trust being back there. Now imagine if she was alive and taken back there. That would be scary. Someone taking you back here against your will or misleading you to take you back there to kill you and dump you. But the evidence is saying that there was blood in her apartment and he cleaned it up. So that would lead me to believe that he murdered her inside of her apartment. So I don't know about what this neighbor was alleging and what he heard from another neighbor who's no longer alive, that she was screaming for help, this and that. As I said, maybe she was screaming for help through the walls. He heard all that. But my point is, nobody called 911. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with the fact that they heard glass breaking, but he said he looked out and didn't see anything. And I have a problem with the guy who lived next to her, who would have had more calls to call, because if you heard her screaming in the apartment, you saw her leave, which I don't believe that could have happened if she was dead. But nonetheless, if you heard something going on inside of the apartment, let me say that, you should have dialed 911. If you heard her screaming inside the apartment, if you heard a commotion in her apartment, you heard glass breaking from the window, you heard things being thrown around, hollering, screaming, you should have dialed 911, because perhaps had you called the police, whether she survived or not, they could have apprehended him, Johnny, on the spot, because the state alleges he stayed behind and cleaned her apartment for hours. They also state he hid chairs with stains on them. So how did blood get on chairs? So was she sitting in the chair when he broke in her house? Or did he make her sit down? Did he try to make her put a gun to her head to make it look like she killed herself? That's another thing. Maybe he gave her the gun, forced her to take the gun and say, shoot yourself. If you don't, I'm going to shoot you. I don't know. But the state is alleging he shot her. And he stayed behind, cleaned up her apartment, and took her out of there in duct tape and plastic bags. What I'd like to know is the obvious questions. Why did he go there in that truck? Did he go there in the truck that night? Did he also take the toolbox that same night in that truck? When he was done cleaning up the apartment after killing her, did he take her out of there in duct tape, plastic bags, in the toolbox? Hello, Stardust. Those are the questions I have. I do not know if the state will be able to answer any of those questions, but that's what I want to know, because they're entering all this into evidence. His phone, his text messages, what he Google searched, the truck pings him out there at that house, obviously where he dumped her. So we have to ask, did he take that truck initially to her house when he murdered her? What did he tow her out of the house in? That toolbox or something else? Did he take her somewhere else in the truck and then went and got a toolbox and put her in a toolbox somewhere else? Those are the questions I have pertaining to John Bassett and the murder of Desheena Kyle. Please check out my library for said videos from yesterday, where I go to the dump site, the disposal site, and I film there live. And after that live stream, I go to Desheena Kyle's old apartment building at Nob Hill Apartments. And I luckily speak to a guy who happened to have been her neighbor at the time. He lived on the second floor. She lived on the bottom floor. And I take you around the back of the building to her bedroom window that was busted out by Mr. John Bassett when he broke and entered into the apartment illegally and killed this young lady. I talked to him and his girlfriend briefly. And it's a sad tale, because listening to him and this lady talk, at that time, the landlord instructed them not to call 911 if something happens at the property, which is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. And as I said, perhaps this lady could have lived, and or at least the suspect could have been apprehended at that time had somebody called 911 when they heard glass breaking, heard an altercation. Allegedly saw him leave. He could have been apprehended right then. And he wouldn't have had time to dispose of Desheena Kyle's body, and the family sat in limbo for 3 months wondering where she was. He knew where she was all along because he's the one that took her to his great-grandmother's house, abandoned house, and disposed of her in a crawl space. A very cold and calculated demon seed. And the fact that he has the nerve to spin this web that she was suicidal, she damaged his property, she's violent. Well, you are more violent than she because you killed her and you're walking around. So who's the violent one, Mr. Bassett? And I see you sitting up in court, chunky and fatter. Obviously, the great people of Knoxville, Tennessee, the taxpayers, their money has gone to good use by filling up your belly. And you've lightened up a bit being incarcerated 2 years. And know that Mr. Bassett was already in custody at the time of being charged with Desheena's murder. He was there on violation of probation, selling and manufacturing of cocaine, and also gun, being in possession of a gun as a convicted felon, if I'm not mistaken. So he's been a busy boy at the time. He had an outstanding warrant. Wannabe badass. So who told word to find the body? I believe he possibly told. I'm not sure. I will wait to see what the court brings forward as far as information to how they found out that she was there. If there was a call, anonymous call, I don't know. But I won't doubt he told where she was. Because, as I said, he was already in custody in July. For said charges, outstanding warrant. So this is what's interesting to me. You're out here selling drugs, running around with a gun. She was killed with a gun. And you're hiding out from a warrant, but you've got time to go murder somebody and then hide out. They find you, arrest you. And then now, 2 years later, you have the nerve to say she killed herself, but yet you broke into her apartment. And they've got your Google searches. They've pinged the truck at the site where you disposed of her body at your great-grandmother's house, dilapidated house. You Google searching what happens to a person shot and pregnant, yet she wasn't pregnant. So I don't know where you got the information that she was pregnant. I don't know if Miss Kyle told you that. And why in the world she would tell you that and wasn't, I don't know. But nonetheless, those are the things you searched in your Google search. So your device is what got you caught up. And God forbid anybody told law enforcement they saw you over there that night, breaking and entering and coming out of that apartment with something. Toolbox, tub, tote, rug, whatever. Because I'd like to know how you took her out of there. Because if you brought her out of that apartment in the toolbox, then that means it's premeditated murder. You deliberately went there and took the toolbox and a gun to kill Miss Desheena Kyle. That's my said commentary for this morning pertaining to John Bassett. He's a vile creature and he doesn't deserve to walk around. Because what people need to realize is that if you let this SOB do 20, 30 years, he'll be out when he's 50 something, 60. He has the propensity for murder. He's violent. He would do it again. He would get tangled up with another woman. Things don't go his way. And he would kill her too. And thank God he's not somebody's father that I know of. I do not know if he has any children. But let's pray that he doesn't have any children. Because who wants this type of thing for a father? And just imagine if she was pregnant. And she was carrying a baby around and or had the child. He would be susceptible to kill a baby. Who's to say? Because if he killed her thinking she was pregnant, just imagine if she had a child. He would be the same type of person that would kill the child. He's disgusting and he's vile. And anybody supporting him, visiting him, writing him, your ass is crazy and you deserve to be in there with him, locked up. He does not deserve freedom. He does not deserve parole. Frankly, he deserves a needle to the arm. And the state feels like the only thing he's guilty of is disposing her body, tampering with evidence, which is cleaning the apartment. But the state alleges torture, or let's just say abuse of a corpse. It's abuse because he took her out of the apartment. Defense. And stored her in someone's vacant house in a damn toolbox. That's where the abuse comes. He didn't have to take her out of the house. He had already murdered her. He should have left her there. That shows guilt. And as I've told you before, it is very rare that a suspect takes a body out of the house if they don't know the victim. The only people that usually take bodies out of the house are people who are known to the victim. And they do this as not to have the body discovered, so they could be linked to the body, forensic evidence. Strangers rarely take bodies out of the house. Very rare. 9 times out of 10, if a body is removed out of a house after murder, the suspect knew the victim. And they dispose of the body as so the body won't be detected and they won't be linked to the body. 9 times out of 10, there's DNA. There was probably gunshot residue on the victim. Naturally, he wouldn't have had it on him because he went undetected for 3 months. But who's to say he didn't keep some of his clothes from that night? Bleach, whatever he used to try to clean up the crime scene from her apartment. He probably would be stupid enough to keep the same clothes, same shoes, same pants. And that's the thing people don't understand about searching for things in the Google search engine. That stuff never leaves the cell phone. You can erase it, stomp on the phone, beat it, throw it in the river, the lake. It's not going anywhere. And that is where Mr. Bassett made his mistake, was searching death and murder after the fact, taking that truck to that dilapidated house with her body in it. So I'd like to know, did he take the truck to her house initially, or did he rent the truck after the murder? I want to thank you all for your time. The next live stream is pertaining to Jacqueline Giselle West and Lois Vallow Daybell. The state and the defense has rested in the Vallow case. We will possibly get a verdict here soon. And the state has rested in the Jacqueline and Giselle West case. Those will be my next live streams after this. Please check my library for said polls, updates, breaking news, and the 2 videos I did yesterday pertaining to Desheena Kyle. I go to the discardment site where Mr. Bassett discarded her body, and I also go to her apartment complex, and by the luck of the draw, second door I knocked on, I met people who were actually her neighbors at that time. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $DeGandy, 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are welcome during my live streams. Prayers to the Kyle family. Praying for justice. I do believe justice will be served in this case. And I'm praying for a guilty verdict and life without parole for Mr. John Bassett. I will bring you information later on, possibly tomorrow, on what happens in court today pertaining to Mr. Bassett. Next live stream, Jacqueline Giselle West and Lois Vallow Daybell. Thank you for your time. You have been listening to The Vault. Excel.